Yes.
Good
Hey,
morning.
Ellison.
Morning.
Hey.
How's it going?
We're doing
How are
good.
you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm all right.
I know
Good
you
to
got a
see
full.
y'all.
I know you got a full day. Let me just start with this. Some years ago, you were a U.S. representative, and you made in the 11th hour to leave Congress and enter the Attorney General's race. Did you think that? Wow, that it would explode like this?
You know, I never anticipated that, but I made a decision to leave Congress and go to the Attorney General's office because I felt like I needed to be a little bit closer to the fight.
Right.
And what is that fight? People dying because they can't afford their insulin, right?
Right.
People dying because they can't afford the medications that they live on, that they need to survive. We started a wage theft unit because we saw all these folks who were promised $11, $12, not much money, but weren't even getting that. So we started a wage theft unit to go after employers who were not paying people right. And we stepped up and did a working group on deadly force encounters with the police. Last year we did that. Our report came out in February. As a member of Congress, I could speak on these issues. I could introduce legislation, but getting it passed takes 218 people and the Senate and then the president. And I wasn't patient enough to stay in that environment at that time. I needed to get a little more close to where the action was.
Right.
Attorney Keith Ellison, your life has just changed overnight. How are you and your family handling this? Because many people out there are for us, but a lot of people are against us. How are you protecting yourself and your family?
Well, I'm drinking a lot of water, working out, staying away from the nervous eating. You know the drill, right?
Oh, yeah.
Quite honestly, I'm a praying person. I believe in God, y'all.
Okay.
And I'm a prayerful person. My wife and I walking in the park, looking at something about being in nature always fuels my soul. So, and we're staying close. We're a close family. My brother's checking in. We all lost our mom to COVID-19 about a month ago. Yeah, that happened.
God,
And
so sorry about that.
Yeah. But she, my brother was telling me, man, look, you got her in your corner, brother.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, that's what we're doing. Just sticking close, keeping eyes on justice, making sure we don't get distracted. Most of success is keeping the main thing.
Right.
So that's what we're doing. And so I've been making the media rounds because it's important for the public to understand that we're taking this case very seriously. We are committed to securing convictions and bringing real accountability.
Well, the public is watching, and of course, we want answers. Why is it so hard to convict a police officer when he has outright broke the law? What those police officers did, if I did it, Rick did it, George did it, we would be found guilty and thrown in jail for the rest of our lives. Why is it hard to convict police officers?
Well, speaking generally, not about this case in particular, but generally, the police and the prosecutors are all they're friends. They enjoy social life together. They know each other. And I mean, you watch the show Law and Order. It's all about the nexus between police and prosecutors, right? I mean, that's right there. Then what? Well, we all expect police to help and not hurt. That's our expectation, and so we walk into that. We're a little shocked when you see somebody entrusted with serving and protecting doing the exact opposite. And it takes some people a little time to believe that what they see is what's really happening.
Right.
And so there's a number of things.
We see a lot of these videos popping up showing that indeed some of the police officers are the agitators and the instigators of a lot of this violence. Once this kind of settles in, will there be an attempt to go after these officers who are blatantly being filmed, being the instigators and the starters? Aren't these some of the same officers that we're trying to change the culture by getting rid of?
Well, let me speaking again generally and not about this case. It is important to make sure the chief runs the department and that impunity is no longer a part of our policing system. You know, there needs to be accountability at every step. But you all have jobs, and if you all start violating FCC rules and the radio station policy, you know what's going to happen, right?
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
in a lot of departments,
That's right.
it's like, well, wait a minute, you got X number of complaints. What you still doing here? Hey, the union's protected me. I do what I want to do. I don't have to listen to you. So
Right.
that is a problem. And again, I'm not speaking about this case. I'm speaking in general. And I think it's important. This is perhaps a reform movement moment. We might be at an inflection point when people who weren't willing to listen before, now they're watching this video and they're like, wow, and it's not a one-off. It's not like, okay, well, that one thing with Rodney King happened that time. Well,
Right.
I mean, wait a minute. You got tape popping up all over the place with stuff that's really egregious. And at some point, no honest person can deny that there's a serious problem here.
Right. Attorney, you said you believe that the evidence does support the charge.
Right.
How hard is it to prove premeditated murder?
Well, if you have the facts, it's no harder than prove it any other charge. But you've got to be able to show for premeditated murder that there was an element of planning, pre-planning, that that they're like, for example, somebody saying, I'm gonna kill that person, or somebody hiring somebody to kill for hire. I'm speaking in general again. You need evidence of planning, of deliberation, of sort of following a course to murder through. Not all murders happen that way. Sometimes, it's at the scene, somebody says something to somebody else, and in a very instantaneous moment, they intend to kill somebody. That's not premeditation, but it is murder. And then sometimes there's another kind of murder where you intend to do the felony that results in murder, but your intent was not to kill the person. Your intent was to do the felony, to assault the person, to do the robbery, but if you go in there and you commit a felony deliberately, intentionally, and that results in the person's death, that still is murder, but it's what they call felony murder. Right. And so it's just a law. It's all of it's immoral, right? All of it is wrong. All of it you got to be held accountable for. So I mean, but you've got to you've got to use the facts you have to make the charges that are there. And somebody said to me, I think this should be a first-degree murder case with the death penalty. I said, the law, that's legally impossible in Minnesota. And they got mad at me. They, well, watch you. They do it in Texas.
That's Texas.
That's different.
Right.
Right.
And so people's emotions run high, but I'm not going to let my emotions run high. My thing is the law and the facts. I can assure you guys, I didn't charge this case this way to meet public demand. I would have been, if I'd have looked at this case and I said, sorry, but this is what it is. I didn't ask for this case. Y'all wanted me to do this, and I'm giving you my assessment, even if it makes you mad. Here's what it is. I would have done that, and I would have taken the heat for that. But I reviewed the evidence and the facts, and I reviewed the law, and I came up with an enhancement for Derek Chauvin to second-degree murder, and I came up with aiding and abetting liability for the other three. As you watch the video, you can see who did what for yourself.
Now,
so you can't really look at it and say that anyone was culpable of it other than Chauvin so far, correct?
No, they were all culpable.
Okay.
If you aid someone in committing a felony offense which results in the death of another person, you're culpable. I mean, look, I can't talk about the evidence in this case because I'm not allowed to do that.
Right.
But what I would say, I mean, if you're being a lookout, what is that? Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, wait a minute. How many people do you know in prison now because they were a lookout for the dope house?
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, you didn't squeeze off the shots, but you was in the car driving.
Yeah.
I mean, don't tell me you weren't part of it. You were
Oh, you
part
know
of
what
it.
is going on.
I
Absolutely.
hate to use this analogy, but First 48 all the time. We watch First 48, and one murderer go down that who shot, but they also looking for the 3 who was on the scene. And once they track them down, they end up getting as much or almost as much time as the person who pulled the trigger.
That's
Let
very
me tell
true.
you, if somebody is committing a crime and you're with them, you need to abandon the criminal purpose. I ain't with this.
Right.
I'm out.
Right.
I'm out of this. I'm not
Right.
part of this. Y'all doing this? See you later. I'm not part of this. But if you're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to ride with you, even though I'm not really totally down or it's really your idea, well, you failed yourself. I mean, look, the aider and abettor, not in this case, again, I'm speaking generally, but the aider and abettor in general, they can't just say they were led along by somebody. If you helped in the commission of a crime, you're on the hook for that crime. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You could have said stop. You could have said no. You could have gotten up. You could have walked away. You could have, a thousand things. But if you decided to ride it out with that person doing that, then you're on the hook for it. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. We expect people to do better. And how can we enforce a higher social expectation unless we hold people accountable for breaking the law?
Attorney General Keith, these officers have their own attorneys now. They're behind closed doors. They're scared to death, and they're going to start pointing fingers. How does this work?
Maybe.
Yeah. How does this work with a plea deal? Them saying, well, this was happening before. This is why I did it. If you do this for me, I would be willing to talk. Is that a possibility with these officers?
Well, I can't really say yes or no in this case. What I will say in general, plea agreements are part of the criminal justice system. And sometimes, generally speaking, of course, it is to the advantage of the prosecution to give something in exchange for cooperating testimony or something like that. That is part of the system. And so I can't say whether it would be appropriate in this case because it's just not right for me to comment on that. But I can tell you that I don't need to tell you. It happens every day. I mean, right. So that's the way it happens.
Right. Before we go, bail has been set for the other 3 at $750,000 apiece. Are they still sitting in? Are they out? Where does that stand?
Last time I heard, and I get regular reports, they were still in custody. But I don't know what happened between about 1 o'clock last night and this morning. So as far as I know, they're still there. But that's
right.
That's what I know.
And one quick question: we have reports that George Floyd knew the officer who kneeled down on him for 9 minutes on his neck. Does that make a difference at all in how you all are pursuing that? The fact that he walked up and he said, "Oh, well, this is a guy that I know," opposed to just a total stranger that he may have been in contact with?
That's an excellent question. It's a part of the investigation, and therefore I can't really say. But obviously, something like that could be important, which is about all I can say about it.
Well, listen, thank you for your time. He's the first high-profile Muslim attorney general in Minnesota. This is the one and only Keith Ellison. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Stay rested and prayed up.
Thank you, brother. Peace. All right, thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good one now.
You too. Bye.
You too.